Hello and welcome to another edition of Town Talk. My name is Connor Lynch, your host. Town Talk is a program where we sit down with important decision makers in Westwood in order to learn what's been going on and what's coming up for our great town. While we've spoken before with people who help maintain and govern Westwood, today's guest is one who helps develop the buildings and properties that we have in it. Today we'll be speaking with Giorgio Petruzziello. Giorgio, thank you for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
So the main crux of today that we're going to be talking about is the Islington Center redevelopment. This is a huge project that's been in the work for pretty much 2 years at this point. Before we kind of dive into the nitty gritty, I want to ask a little bit about some of the other projects that you've developed. I know you've helped out with Westwood, with Dedham. I'm curious if people don't know the kind of things that you've done before. What can they look at to say, hey, Petruzziello helped do that?
So our most prominent developments are probably, I would say, right in Dedham Square. 12 years ago, we spearheaded the redevelopment of Dedham Square with the old transcript building right in front of Town Hall. That was our first major mixed-use development. 12 years later, we've added 30,000 square feet and over 100 residential units to Dedham Square and really changed all of Dedham Square with adding new restaurants, big name restaurants like Blue River Barbecue, Horse Thieves, adding coffee shops. And really now Dedham Square has turned into a thriving community because of those recent construction projects. We have a 60-acre site on the Dedham-Westwood line. That's a 17-lot subdivision, which we're 75% through. And we're in the process of starting a smaller 4-lot subdivision in the Oakdale area of Dedham.
Excellent. So looking to specifically Islington Center, this is a project that, like I said, has been going on for well over 2 years at this point. So I wonder if you can take us back a little bit in time and talk about how it started, what it looked like, and how it's kind of developed into what the project is today.
Sure. So 2 years ago, we started with the RFP, and the involvement from the residents and the local leaders really helped develop this project to what it is today. Some of the major changes, there's many changes that have happened, but some of the major changes are, I would say, is the ICC building, keeping the look of the church. That was really, we heard from the residents that that's a landmark in Islington. That's what Islington is known for. So in working with the architects and engineers, we basically built a replica of the ICC building, which will be a mixed-use development. Another major change is working diligently with CVS, trying to create the architecture to keep it in a village feel. Yeah, typical CVS are your box stores that you see along Route 1. This one here has the hips, the roofs, and the architecture to make sure it fits with the town. Another major development change was the library. The library with the new community center behind it. As you see on the plans, the new library completely remodeled, new community center right behind it, handicap accessible, and we added almost a green space courtyard, if you call it, in front of it. So that there, I imagine that's going to be great community space on the outside of the building for reading, children's area, people just gathering in public.
Absolutely. So tackling kind of each individual building at once, the Islington Community Center has kind of been like the focal point of a lot of this in terms of keeping the facade, like you mentioned, keeping that kind of village feel. A lot of people feel like that steeple design is something that really like keeps that feel together. And they think that that's kind of like the big linchpin of this all. I want to call it like that. So, you know, how has that been a factor for you guys in terms of keeping that design, and why this building in particular? Why do you think that this is a good use for a mixed use?
Well, the mixed use with that type of building, I see where the residents and, again, the local town leaders would say, let's keep this and design it. It gives that sense of community. Even though the building was built in the late 50s and 60s, it's not a historic building at all, but keeping that feel keeps the village feel and the architecture intact in Islington. The mixed use aspect of it is a part that I feel that the residential feeds the retail and the restaurants below. As we know, that the housing in Westwood, when it comes to elder or the younger people getting in, is a little difficult. So if you're an older person staying in Westwood, looking for an alternative housing, this is perfect. They live in a condo in Islington. They have parking underneath. They feed the coffee shops, the restaurants, and frequent the library, and it's just a great trans-oriented spot. You have Route 1A in front of you. You have the bus, the train, When it comes to younger people, they can live in a condo and get on the train and go right to Boston. It's also a stepping stone for a younger couple trying to get into Westwood. So it's a great location for mixed-use development.
Absolutely. And I think that, the benefit of filming a lot of these planning board meetings is I've been listening to a lot of what people are saying, and a lot of people have kind of made the analogy of trying to, say, tune up a Ferrari. There's so many times and so many ways that you can put money into a building before you have to say, okay, you know what, we need to make major redesigns, especially in the inside. It's an old building. It was made, back in the 60s even.
For a church.
Yeah, exactly. So trying to continually throw money in there is costly. And I think that it's going to be a huge benefit to see this redesigned quite well. So moving along to CVS, which is kind of the next big factor in everything. So what is the emphasis with CVS? Why bring CVS from one side of the street to the other? Why is this such a big part of this project?
So CVS there's two big economic factors to CVS. Yes, they're in the center today. It feeds the neighborhoods very well. But for CVS to pick up and move, they have certain criteria. So a corner is one of their major guidelines to move across the street. Not only that, they need more space. So the economics behind how CVS goes there feeds the development as a whole. And when it comes to financing the project, and actually CVS, like Roach Brothers, feeds a lot of the smaller businesses. So feeds Islington Pizza, the post office, and it will feed the new businesses like the coffee shops or the restaurants. We call it like a destination point. If you look at Legacy Place, they have a Whole Foods. That feeds the little businesses. Like Islington, we'll have a CVS, we have the Roach Brothers, and that feeds all the smaller businesses. It creates a healthy environment when it comes to the retail aspect of it.
That's excellent. And just to ask, because you mentioned like coffee shops and things like that, I know there's that space that's going to be over where CVS and the library are now. Do we know what kind of buildings or what kind of businesses are going to be going in there, or?
So we don't, well, the existing CVS is going to be completely remodeled with retail on the first floor. We don't have an idea of exact which tenants are going in, but we do know that the MMO will be on the basement level of that. And that will be completely remodeled with the handicap access, new playground, a completely brand new facility.
Okay. We also want to talk a little bit about the library, Wentworth Hall, Blue Heart Tavern. This has kind of been, especially with the Blue Heart Tavern, hard to fit everything into it. So is the library going to be torn down and then rebuilt, or is it going to be moved from across the street?
So absolutely, will not be torn down. Wentworth Hall will be picked up from where it exists today and moved across the street, and will be completely remodeled. There'll be an addition on the back for a community center and a lower level so there'll be an addition on the back to the community center, and there'll be a lower level for gathering space. So on that side, I call it the School Street side, you'll have the library set off the street, community center in the back, and again, the court green space in the front. And we have on the right side of that an area for the Blue Heart Tavern. Now, the Blue Heart Tavern, as you know, there was a lot of discussion on keeping it or not keeping it.
A lot of discussion, yeah.
Yes, there has. So right now, we have a location for it, but it hasn't yet been determined what's going to happen to it. The selectmen, we're still in a disposition agreement with the selectmen.
So it will go before the Board of Selectmen in order to determine if the Blue Heart Tavern stays on the project or goes? Is that how it's going to go?
Correct. And up to the Board of Selectmen.
Let's say that the Board of Selectmen say, okay, you know what, we're going to allow you guys to keep the Blue Heart Tavern on the plan as we move forward. What happens if they don't? What happens to that building?
Well, if it stays, we will remodel and it will be kept. But if it goes, it will unfortunately be demolished.
Well, let's hope that that doesn't come to fruition.
Yes, we've kept it for a long time, so it's very expensive.
Absolutely, absolutely. So one of the big things that a lot of people have addressed is the parking issue. Parking already is a little tight there, and we're planning on adding a few more spaces, but also adding a lot more businesses. So a lot of people right now will park behind where the CVS is, kind of on East Street. But I want to talk a little bit about how you guys have planned with the parking, how this project factors into making it more accessible for people who want to park their car and walk around.
So parking, as we see it, it really, the uses drive the parking. So a major example that we used at one of the planning board meetings, so the MMO, for example, has in business from 9 to 1:30. If a restaurant use comes in, typical business hours are 3 to 10 or 3 to 9. So the parking lot is always turning. So counting that double parking spaces it really doesn't do anybody good. So here, that parking space turns when one use is working and one use isn't. And the same thing with a coffee shop or any other use. So that's really what's driving how the parking lots are run well. It depends on the uses that are in the space. When it comes to foot traffic, foot traffic is a major economic boom for when it comes to downtown. Bringing in the people from the neighborhoods and the people that live in the buildings down outside, that's what we want. That's the key to these developments. The key to these developments is bringing in aesthetically pleasing sidewalks, landscaping, lighting, making sure that crossing from one building to another or crossing the road is safe, pedestrian friendly, the bikes, children to go back and forth. The key to these developments is walking and gathering space to keep them intact.
Absolutely. And I think that the plans have kind of shown that we have a lot more area in that CVS parking lot where we're having a lot more parking set up.
Absolutely.
And the question was asked before at one of the meetings about, will the CVS parking be CVS exclusive parking, or is that more of a community lot for everybody to be accessible for?
Well, the way I look at it, yes, there's, on the plans you'll see a line that shows the CVS parking and the community lot parking, but it's going to act as it does today. Today there's no line behind the library showing where the CVS parking and the library parking is. Everybody just finds a spot, parks, and goes in. So I imagine that being the same use, used the same way.
Because I think a lot of people do that with the same thing with like parking to get to the baseball field. They'll still park behind CVS.
Absolutely, nothing will change with the baseball. Today they park behind the CVS. They'll be doing parking the same way behind the mixed-use development.
And there's no, I mean, we talk about East Street side and School Street side. There's no huge impact that's going to be hitting like where the fire station or the baseball field are. Those are kind of being left untouched, or is there any development going onto that side of the street?
No, we're not doing any development on that side of the street. That development actually, the fire station just finished.
Okay. You talked a little bit about safety. You talked a little bit about wanting pedestrians to feel safe and things like that, which brings us to traffic. The traffic studies have been going on, and Islington Village did not do well. How has the project kind of looked at that and handled trying to keep in mind how that traffic flow is going to be, especially with these new developments going in?
So traffic, like any, is always a topic of conversation. But we have not determined yet exactly what needs to be done to improve it or keep it the same. That's one discussion we're having right now at the plannable level with our engineers and the beta group to finally determine what's the best path to make sure we can improve the traffic in the area or not make it any worse.
So, I mean, to talk a little specifically, I think one of the major ideas and considerations was adding a left-hand turn on East Street going southbound, so going towards Roaches. And another thing was adding a dedicated left turn lane if you were going southbound to get onto East Street. So I know that there's a lot of different projects being thrown around, a lot of different plans. I think there was like 6 different ways that we can look at this all. If this project were to go through, ideally, what would we want to see? What's going to be on that plan that's going to go before town meeting? Do you know?
When it comes to the traffic aspect of it, we do not know yet.
Okay.
Like you said, there is quite a few plans out there that show adding a lane, putting left turn signals or right turn signals. It has not been determined exactly what the town leaders and the engineers want to make sure this project works.
Okay. So there's a lot of different committees that you guys have gone in front of and still need to go through. So what is the next process? Right now we're kind of in this planning phase where we're talking a lot with the planning board. We're going to go in front of the Board of Selectmen. What else has to be done before town meeting in May?
So we have to go in front of the finance committee, and we also have to go in front of the Conservation Commission.
Why is that?
So finance committee for changing some zoning bylaws, and for the Conservation Commission, it's for stormwater management. And also there's a little piece of wetland on the backside of the CVS that has to be replicated.
And that's all been figured into the plan, so we're not encroaching on, like, I think it was like a 30-foot buffer or whatnot?
Yes, that's all figured into the plans.
Okay, excellent. So looking 5, maybe 10 years down the road, what do you see this project kind of finally looking like?
So in 5 or 10 years, I see Islington as a real vibrant community center where people from School Street, East Street, the surrounding areas walking into the center. You're going to see people eating at the new restaurants, people gathering in front of the library. My envision, you're going to have the brand new MMO, parents dropping off their children, going to the library, eating outside, eating at the restaurants, going to the coffee shops, visiting Birdie's Ice Cream. In my opinion, Islington will be an example for other communities to see how well a center works, with pedestrian-friendly sidewalks, biking, and really an example for the community.
That's excellent. I'm looking forward to it because I look at this project, I see a lot of the different improvements that need to be done now. I see a lot of the improvements that are being proposed, and I think that overall, this is going to be a project that's really going to help make this area of Westwood even better than it is now, which, I mean, biased, but I think it's already pretty good.
Thanks. We feel the same way.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for coming on the show today. It was really good to sit down and kind of get into the nitty-gritty of everything that's going to be coming. So,
right. Thanks for having me.
To see more episodes of Town Talk, including an interview with Fire Chief John Deckers, you can log on to westwoodmediacenter.tv. Thank you, and I hope you join us again next time for some more Town Talk.